food and drinks, which we have over there. And then, as we do in the before class, just start first, and then the brothers right after, and then we'll go ahead and start with the talk at hand. Also, I have some announcements later on, but one of the first ones, just so I don't forget either, is we have a bonfire coming up. We did a New Muslim bonfire. We try to get social activities going on. So I have 2 sign-up sheets going on, one on the brother side, one on the sister side. If you're able to make it for the bonfire, and if you're able to maybe bring something, that'll be great. Just go ahead and sign up as the form is going around. Just try not to bring the same things, like everyone's going to bring drinks or everyone brings the apple. Just try to mix it up, so as you're looking at the list, just see what else other people are bringing. So this way we don't kind of triple up on too many things of this same category. But then I'll announce that a little bit more at the end. That'll be, I believe, it's August 18th. It's going to replace our Coffee with the Sheikh event, the one we do every Friday night. So we're actually going to take our QA event to Huntington Beach, actually on the beach. So we did it some time back. It was really nice. We want to continue this. How many made it last time to our bonfire? Okay, mashallah, a few of you. Okay, so for those that haven't, we're going to give you a little initiation for our bonfire. So, inshallah. But I know it'll be a lot of fun, inshallah, God willing. Okay, everyone doing all right? Yes? Yes, everyone good? Okay, perfect. So let's continue our review session, if it's okay. And again, we're almost done with the review, so this might be the last session. Again, it's no race, so I'm not rushing to finish this. I just want to make sure everybody understands the material that we're going over. And again, if anybody's interested in the slides themselves, just go ahead and email me, and I'll be more than happy to send you over the PowerPoint slides so you can kind of study for it as well. And my whole hope as well, inshallah, God willing, is once we finish this, we are going to have a exam or a quiz on the life of the Prophet, right? Because I want to make sure everybody understands. But it'll be a fun exam, and that's going to be like a Muslim Jeopardy competition. Anybody familiar with Jeopardy? I'm sure everyone is. But how about Muslim Jeopardy? Yeah, so what we basically do is just like Jeopardy, but they're based on, all the questions are going to be based on the life of the Prophet. So it's a lot of fun. I've done it a few times, and every time we do it, it gets really competitive. The competition will come out of you. Don't worry about that. So that's most likely, I think that's the plan as we continue forward. But again, it's still a few more weeks, but just make sure you do your best to continue in the class. Any questions so far regarding what we've covered in the last few weeks about the review session? Everyone okay? And remember, again, this is being live streamed, so if for some reason you want to go back and review or you missed a session, you can always go back. Just go to our YouTube page at IIOC Outreach. Yes, Jenny? Sure, you can also say that, yeah, of course, of course. So whenever we say it, and sometimes if you don't hear somebody saying, may God's peace be upon them, they might internally be saying it, right? So it's not that you verbally, no. I mean, it's encouraged because you'll encourage other people as well. But remember, some people, they might be whispering it in their hearts as well. Yeah. Yeah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That just means may God's peace be upon them. Good question. All right, everyone good? All right, welcome back. Welcome back. All right, so let's continue where we left off last week, and that was that, just touching on a little bit, we had, it was the sanctions against, remember, the Muslims, right? Especially the Banu Hashim tribe, the tribe of the Prophet Muhammad, because they were conveying this message of one God, so they had to take step-by-step way or an approach to stop this message of the Prophet Muhammad. Then we get into the 10th year of the revelation. So this is 10 years after the revelation started, right, to the Prophet Muhammad. So he's 10 years into his prophethood, right? Now, in this year, we talked about it, this is the year of sorrow. This is the year that the Prophet Muhammad, he lost Abu Talib. Remember, Abu Talib was his uncle, right? He was the one who was protecting him. He gave him protection. So we take 2 steps back. Remember, in tribal society, in order for you to have protection, you need to come from some type of tribe that they recognize, or some chief from that tribe that will give you that protection, all right, or allegiance. Abu Talib dies. So now he's lost his protection. Khadija, the wife of the Prophet Muhammad, also dies. So remember, we talked about the Prophet Muhammad's mother passed away, his father passed away, his grandfather passed away, now his uncle passes away, and his wife passes away. It was said when Khadija, the wife of the Prophet, passed away, that the companions didn't see the Prophet smile for many months. For many months, he wasn't seen smiling, just because you know how close him and his wife Khadija were. So it's something very, obviously touching and very close to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, right? We talked about then, following this, the 10th year, they call it the year of sorrow because of what the Prophet lost as far as his family members, that it was followed by a huge blessing. That was Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj, right? The ascension, the trip or the journey from Mecca to Al-Quds or Jerusalem. Then that's Al-Isra. Wal-Mi'raj is from Jerusalem or Al-Quds to the heavens. Remember, we talked about this last week. Again, scholars, I put it here because some scholars said this is the time it came, but just know there's a difference of opinion when this actual event actually happened. Was it a bit earlier on, or was it a bit later on? There's some difference of opinion, but some scholars, or a good amount, say it happened around this time. So just keep that in mind, okay? Then we talked about the prayers being established at this time, right? So how many prayers, as a review from last week? 50. Remember, it was 50 prayers. But then with the conversation that the Prophet Muhammad had with Moses, Moses said, go back to your Lord and ask him for a decrease, because I have experience basically with the children of Israel, and it's very hard, right? So even after 5 prayers, he said, no, go back and get a decrease. He said, no. The Prophet said, no, this, I can't go back anymore. I'm like, so it became 5 prayers, but the reward is as if 50. You pray like 5 prayers, but the reward is as if you're praying like 50 prayers, okay? Then we talked about, or we touched on the story of Ta'if. Ta'if is a town or a city 50 miles east of Mecca, right? 50 miles east of, Mecca, right? And this is a town that the Prophet Muhammad, because he was calling the people of Mecca, known as the Quraysh, right? They were pagans. They were worshiping multiple idols and statues, etc. He was calling them towards one God. Day in, day out, year in and year out, right? And the vast majority of them, they didn't accept. So thus the Prophet said, look, I'm not going to give up in Mecca, but I need to see if there's other areas or other communities that might be receptive to this message. So what does he do? He goes to Ta'if, again, a town or city 50 miles east of Mecca. He goes there, and we talked about it. It's a very famous story. It's a very beautiful story, right? We talked about it, I think, in some detail when we were at the session, that the Prophet goes and he goes to them and basically tells them about Islam. He tells them about monotheism, right? Again, the same message that Abraham brought, Jesus brought, Jonah brought, John the Baptist brought, peace be upon them all. They brought the same message, worship one God. So the Prophet Muhammad goes and conveys the same message. What do you think the people of Ta'if did? Right, exactly, right? Did they accept the message? No, they actually rejected the message. So much so that it's been narrated that they got the thugs or the young kids of town to chase out the Prophet Muhammad and his company, right? And so rocks were being pelted at them. And it's been mentioned that they were bleeding so much that, if I'm not mistaken, his foot was stuck to his sandal. We mentioned that last week. That's how much blood was coming down. All because of what reason? He was just conveying one message of worshiping one God, right? So this was the message of Ta'if when he went there, okay? Now, sometime later, they asked, when they had a battle, the first battle, we're going to get to it, was the first battle of the Muslims was the Battle of Badr. The second battle was the Battle of Uhud. The Battle of Badr, they won. We're going to get to it. I'm just jumping ahead. The Battle of Uhud, the second battle, they actually lost. And they lost, right? And the Prophet was also hurt in that battle. They asked him that, what was that your worst day? Meaning the Battle of Uhud. Was that the worst day because you guys lost? He said, no, the worst day was Ta'if. So the Prophet is saying, the worst day I ever had was Ta'if because of how much hostility and pain and persecution that we face. Imagine you lose a battle, but yet the Prophet is saying, that was bad, but even worse was when I went to Ta'if, this town, to call people, right? But yet you find the Prophet still being patient, right? He's still having patience and dedication. That is an example for us because, eventually when we start to talk to other people, because they're going to start asking us questions about Islam, not everyone's going to accept at one time, right? Maybe the majority of the people, maybe they won't accept. But that teaches you and I to do what? Or to have what type of characteristic? Patience, right? You find it throughout the seerah, the life of the Prophet that we're covering, that he's always having patience, he's always dedicated. He never, he might get shut down once or twice, but he keeps going, right? But he's always building that connection with God, right? Remember we talked about the first few verses that came out, the revelations of the Quran, they're about prayer, right? Why? What was the reason that some of the first few verses of the Quran were about prayer? Why do you guys think? Remember we covered it about 2 sessions ago. You know, and the Prophet was commanded to now deliver this message of one God, right? And so then the revelation started to come down. Some of the early revelations were about prayer, right? Anybody remember that? Okay. Muslim Jeopardy is going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to see how everyone's doing. Don't worry. So remember, the whole concept of the prayer is God is telling the Prophet to have that connection between him and Allah. Because this task or this job or this obligation of outreach is so heavy that you're going to have times where people are going to attack you. Or you're going to have times where it's going to be very heavy, very hard, very difficult. So you have to have that connection with Almighty God. Because through that, you're going to get that connection where you can cry out to Allah. You can complain to Allah. You can ask Allah for help, right? That's why you need that privacy with your Creator. And then also we had verses about some of the prophets of God, right? The reason for that being because Allah is telling the Prophet Muhammad that, look, there were messengers that came before you with the same message, and their nations denied them as well. They rejected them as well. So don't feel like you're the only one. But still be persistent. Still be patient and still deliver the message. One specific story that you'll find in the Quran is the story of the Prophet Noah. Prophet Nuh, right? Noah. Anybody remember how many years he called his people to one God, to monotheism? 950? Are you sure? No, are you sure? Okay, I'm just testing you. You know you're right? Got to make sure you're confident, right? Yeah. Noah called his people for 950 years. 1,000 minus 50, right? The Quran says 950 years. You know, sometimes, I mentioned this in class, you and I will talk to our families or our neighbors, or we're at the mall, we're talking to people for like 5 minutes, and we get frustrated, right? Imagine 950 years. How challenging is that? The Quran mentions, Allah mentioned that Noah called his people in the daytime, in the nighttime, in public, in private, and the vast majority of them rejected. They say only a handful of people actually accepted the message in 950 years. You know, that's you have to have a lot of patience. So again, when you read and you go through the life of the Prophet, you'll find this common theme of patience, that you have to have patience and you have to rely on the one who Almighty God, Allah, to help, right? So now, but he still continues. So remember, he goes to Ta'if, this town. They reject him. He comes back to Mecca. He doesn't give up. He starts to still call people of Mecca, continues. He doesn't ever give up, right? He's persistent. He's patient. He's dedicated, right? Again, important lessons for us, right? Then, remember, they had a Hajj, they had a pilgrimage at that time, right? So now, you know, the pilgrimage that we have today, it's obviously not the same as what they had at that time. They had a form of Hajj or pilgrimage, but it was watered down. They used to worship idols during their pilgrimage. They used to sacrifice animals for their gods and all these different rituals and, things that was very far away. Because remember the message of Abraham and Ishmael? It was a long time. So they started to forget. It started to just be robotic actions that people used to do, and slowly they started to forget. Remember, we talked about this about a few sessions ago, right? So now they're doing their Hajj pilgrimage. The pagans are doing whatever the rituals they do, right? And so the Prophet, what he does is he uses this to his advantage. He says, look, a lot of people are coming to Mecca, specifically here by the Kaaba, the cube, right? The black box. So I want to make sure I talk to them about Islam. Think about it, right? A lot of people from all over Arabia are coming. So he says, this is a good time for me. Instead of going to all these other people, they're coming to us. Let me talk to them about Islam. This teaches us that you also, from the Prophet's life, that you have to also plan. He's planning, right? He's thinking about things. He doesn't just randomly do things, right? Sometimes we just randomly want to do things. There's a time and place for that, but you find the Prophet is putting a lot of thought into this. He knows that, look, all these different tribes are coming. I need to talk to them about the message, right? It's very interesting, right? These are some very small points, but points that are very interesting and very important for us to learn and teach to others today, right? So he's going around and he's talking to other people, right? He's letting them know about the message of Islam and so forth. And many of them, they're rejecting or they're not interested. And he's focusing, the Prophet Muhammad, he's focusing on these big tribes. Then, if you remember, it's so beautiful, he came across a small group of people, maybe like 6 or 7, no tents, no canopy, just sitting there. You can imagine like the VIP packages at that time, right? You have your tents and you have your food and all. There's a little small group of 6 people, and the Prophet walks by and he basically says, who are you guys? Right? Because he would know, or somebody would be helping him, like Abu Bakr, the companion, he said, this is this tribe, this is that tribe. But when the Prophet came to this group, he said, who are you? Like, where are you guys from, right? And then they start to explain to him, yeah, we're from Yathrib, which is a town up north, Medina, right? And he starts to explain to them. And so then the Prophet says, basically, do you give me permission to talk to you? They're like, yeah, sure. So the Prophet starts to do what? He starts to give him da'wah. What is da'wah defined as? Just inviting, educating, informing others about Islam. He starts to talk to these people. In a very short span of time, this group accepts Islam. This group was known as the Khazraj. Okay? Now, this group is from Medina, right? Or before it was named Medina, it was called Yathrib. Okay? There were two major tribes that came from there, the Aus and the Khazraj. You guys remember this? It might be a question on Muslim Jeopardy, so just in case, right? The Aus and the Khazraj. The Khazraj was this group right here. They're the ones that said, you know what, we like this message, we accept this message, right? And so they took this message and they went back to Medina, right? Then they came back, right? So this is, imagine this year, they go and they talk to the Prophet and then they accept Islam. This group of 6 or so, right? They go back, okay? They come back the next year, okay? And they come back and they're about 12 people from Medina, and this is where the first pledge of Aqaba happens. What is Aqaba? Aqaba is a place very close to Makkah. It's a location, right? And the pledge is basically a covenant, a treaty, a promise that this group of 6 that went, they came back now double the number, 12. They said, look, we're upon Islam, and we want to give you basically a pledge to the Prophet Muhammad, right? And the Prophet says basically this is a covenant that we need. And the covenant basically is that you worship God alone, right? The fundamentals. You don't take part in doing evil practices and, immoral things and so forth. If you guys remember, this was the Treaty of Aqaba. Once this was agreed upon, and this group of about 12 people from Medina, they accepted, right? This treaty, this pledge. They then are on their way to go back, right? But the Prophet does something very important at this time. He sends somebody with them. You guys might remember, he sent somebody by the name of Musab ibn Umair. Musab ibn Umair. He was a companion, and he was someone that the Prophet specifically sent to this group of 12 to Yathrib or to Medina. Who can help me out? What's so significant about what the Prophet did at this time? Somebody new, please. What's so significant about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, sending someone with this new group of, let's say, converts or new Muslims? How does it apply to us today? Somebody new. You answer all the time, Ruben. We got to give somebody else a chance. It's good though, but think, guys, think. What's so important about this? Not Edith either. Edith is always answering. Sister Nisha can't answer either. Okay. I'm going to wait right here. Just like, I want to make sure everybody... okay, let me rephrase the question. Okay? So, these group of new Muslims, they just accepted Islam, right? And the Prophet obviously is talking to them. And then they're ready to go back home, which is to Medina, which is a town, city north of Mecca, right? But the Prophet says, before you go, I'm sending someone with you. One of our companions, Musab ibn Umair, I'm sending him with you guys when you go up to Medina, to be with you guys. The question is, what's so significant about what the Prophet did in that situation of sending someone to him? What's so significant about the Prophet sending someone with this group of new converts? As for? Yes. Thank you. Sister Michelle, good job. Yes. It's not rocket science, guys. You guys, are you with me? Right? You see, we could have just went over this, or maybe it was common sense of many people and you thought you were thinking a little too deep, but no. See how important this is? The Prophet Muhammad understood that new Muslims or converts need assistance. The moment Islam's coming from these group of people, by the way. The reason why you and I are here is because these group of 6 people, right, obviously with the Prophet Muhammad and so forth, they went back and they started to learn Islam, and they started to teach it to other people. And then this teaching went and spread, and then it got to Spain, then it got to China, then it got to North Africa, then it got to you name it, then it came to the United States. How? Because the Prophet understood that, look, when somebody is new, they need some support, right? This is why for us here at IIOC, and we pray that, every mosque takes this initiative, that the moment somebody accepts Islam, they have a mentor. And the mentor helps them to learn the basics of Islam. Because imagine, like, it's so difficult. I mean, you just accept Islam, right? And I'm sure there's a lot of horror stories. I'm sure many people went through a lot of things, right? And it's unfortunate. And it's not only with new Muslims, it's people that are recommitted Muslims, people that come for the mosque the first time, right? And you leave everything for the sake of Allah, right? You leave a whole different lifestyle behind and you come into something new. Imagine trying to do this by yourself. Imagine you trying to do this by yourself. How challenging would that be? Some of you probably tried to do it by yourself because maybe you were at a different place or different town, different city, and they didn't have these type of services, right? Are you guys understanding what I'm saying, or am I just like in left field somewhere? Jenny? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. Alhamdulillah. Huge difference, right? Yeah. And that's something like, even myself, I get frustrated. In the sense that when we hear so many people accepting Islam, this is a blessing. I'm very happy, right? And just yesterday, actually, there was a number of people that also accepted Islam. I think about 4 people locally. But when there's no support system, there's no services to help them, somebody might fall through the cracks. And by God's permission, maybe 10, 20 years later, they come back. And I've run into people like that, like 5 years later, 10 years later, they're like, oh my God, I accepted Islam and I didn't have those services and I really didn't know what to do. So they'll go through 5, 10, 20 years not knowing how to pray, not knowing how to make wudu, the cleaning, right? No doubt, everyone has a sense of responsibility that you have to also cater to, right? There's a sense of responsibility. When you accept the message, you have to do your best, right? But at the same time, every community needs to also step up and say, we need to have some type of program. And this is not just what I'm saying or what the mosque is saying. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, over 1,400 years ago, he had the same thing. He would help him, right? So I just wanted to make sure that you and I understood that, right? That support system is very important. So, and the whole hope is for, how many of you are part of the mentorship program? Who actually has a mentor or is a mentor themselves? Okay. Okay, good. So again, for those of you, if you want a mentor, I've been mentioning it many times, let me know. If anybody wants a mentor, right? I know some of you are waiting for the mentor to be plugged in. But for those of you, if you're interested in a mentor, please let me know. Obviously, with sisters and brothers with brothers, we have a number of people from our community that want to help. It's just a matter of now somebody being dedicated and wanting to be part of that program. And again, our mentorship, all we ask is you commit to 1 day a week for about 45 minutes to an hour. I don't think that's too hard. You can do it before Sunday class. You can do it after Sunday class. You can do it before Friday, after Friday, right? Whatever works for you guys, right? But believe me, it's something that you will really appreciate because you'll have privacy, number one. You have someone to talk to. And not just learning how to pray and make wudu, it's your support system. So when you want to open up about family pressure, when you want to open up about like, hey, how do I do the hijab thing, right? I want to put it on. How do I do it at work, etc., right? You have someone that you can speak to, inshallah. So we'll keep that in mind, inshallah. So and I'm very happy with the mosque here that they have this vision of helping our new Muslim family members. So may Allah bless them all, inshallah. All right. So with Musab ibn Umair, this is beautiful because the Prophet chose the right person to go and to do the da'wah, right? To call the people. It was said about a year later, every household in Medina, so remember Musab went with this group, right? About a year later, it was said that every household had at least one person that had accepted Islam or they had known about what Islam is all about. So when Musa went there, he didn't go on vacation. He went to work. Went to work meaning that he started to educate people about Islam. And remember, in Medina, we talked about this months ago, just as a review, there was a civil war going on for almost like 100 years. The Battle of Bu'ath. You don't need to know the name, but it was almost 100 years of like a civil war in Medina, right? And the last 10 years of those, or the last year, was very bloody, very brutal, and it was over something very petty, like a camel grazed in a different land or something like that. And so you start the wars. And it's the same thing today. You go into a rival gang territory, he shoots you, you shoot this, and then 20 years you're like back and forth shooting, and innocent people die. It's the same thing today. It's no different, right? So the point being that Musa went there and he started to talk to people, and because they were in the civil war, they were open-minded. They said, we want something different. We're tired of the bloodshed. We're tired of war. We're tired of killings. We're tired of all these things that we were taking part in, right? So they said, you know what, we want to accept. Another very interesting thing was, remember, there were Jews that lived in Medina as well, right? We talked about this. And the Jews have a concept, obviously, they also worship one God. They do monotheism as well. But where they stop is at Jesus, that they don't accept Jesus, right? They stop at Moses, basically. So, being that this group was around the Jews, they understood the concept of one God. So when the message of one God comes from the Prophet Muhammad, it makes sense to them, because they're like, we know about this, because the Jews also talk about this. But for those in Mecca, because there are no really Jews there, when this concept of one God came, they didn't really understand. They're like, one God? How does that work? Afterlife? Day of judgment? We'll be resurrected? How does that work, right? They didn't understand these fundamental beliefs because they weren't around people that had these beliefs. Whereas those that lived in Medina, right, they had understanding of this because the Jews believed in some of those concepts and ideas. So you see how beautiful how Allah lays everything out? It's just, if you look at it, it's just obviously from the will of Allah, right? So then, after this year, right, when Musab goes, and Musab is one of the companions, almost every household, they say at least one person in every household accepted Islam. So Islam was known. So then they said basically, oh Prophet, we're ready for you. We're ready for you to come to Medina. Because you've been trying in Mecca, it's not working out, you're being persecuted. Come to a city where we're going to welcome you, right? And this is one of the reasons, right? Remember, he went to Ta'if. Why did he go there? To see maybe if they might be receptive. Maybe the Muslim community will start here. Okay, if that didn't work out, okay, let's try Medina. So he's thinking, he has a vision, he's 2 steps ahead, right? This is very important for us to realize in our present day that we need to also think, we need to also be proactive. So they say, look, Medina's ready for you. You can come. So this is where the second pledge of Aqaba happens. The first pledge was just with a small group of people, right? They were basically saying, look, we believe in one God, we won't take immoral actions. This pledge now is a little bit different. It's everything that the first pledge had, the first treaty had, but now basically saying, look, you're going to support me. You're going to defend me like you would defend your family members. Because if I'm coming there, you need to give me protection as well, right? If somebody attacks us, we need to be together in this, right? So then they get this commitment from those people from Medina, right? Known as the Ansar, okay? So then at this point, this is where once they agreed, the second pledge of Aqaba, right? Once they agreed to this, then the Muslims went from Mecca to Medina, right? They did the immigration, or they migrated from Mecca to Medina, right? Now this is where, I think I mentioned this a number of times, this is where the Islamic calendar starts, right? The calendar that we follow as Muslims, how do we start the calendar? Where does it start? From this point here. When the Muslims, they go from Mecca to Medina. So right now, what year are we in? Does anybody know by any chance? 1438, right? So 1438 years ago, the Prophet Muhammad and the Muslims went from Mecca to Medina. And the reason why they had to go from Mecca to Medina, one of the primary reasons, is because they were being persecuted in their own lands. So they had to flee. They left behind their homes. You can't obviously take your home. What's going to happen to when you leave it? Whoever's there is going to take it over. What type of possessions can you take? Whatever your hands can carry, right? So whatever you can take, that's what you would take, right? So you basically had to leave everything behind. And that's what the Muslims did, right? Unfortunately, they had to. They were forced to do this, right? Because they were being persecuted, okay? Then, and we talked about the sacrifices that they made, right? The companions made. And this is an important point for us as well in our new Muslim family here, that there are going to be times where you have to make sacrifices, right? When you're following the truth, definitely God is going to test you, and there's times you're going to have to make sacrifices. Those sacrifices are different. Sometimes it's with your wealth. Sometimes it's with other things. Sometimes it's with your job. It may be different things, right? But it teaches us here that, look, those that came before us, those that laid the foundation, they sacrificed way more than we could probably ever sacrifice. This is how the message ended up here. And this is why God chose them. Think about it, how many of us could do this? When you know there's, all these sacrifices going on, and, you have to leave your town that you grew up in. Imagine you live in Anaheim 30, 40, 50 years. And your your parents and your grandparents all lived in this city. Now you're told you got to leave. It's a sense of like, wow, this is my home. I have to leave my home, right? And this is what happened to the early Muslims. Not only that, but you have to leave everything behind. Your job, your bank account. Obviously, they didn't have Wells Fargo at that time, right? So whatever was their way of accounting and money, you had to leave all that behind. You can only take whatever you can take. So this is what they had to go through, right? So being that the Muslims now, the numbers were starting to get larger, right? When they went from Mecca to Medina, known as the Hijrah, the migration, right? The economy of Mecca started to take a hit. You guys with me? The economy starts to take a hit. Why? Because people are leaving. Imagine Anaheim, if half the population of Anaheim leaves, it's obviously going to have a big impact on the city, right? Remember, Mecca at that time was not like how you see it today with millions of people. It was very small. Okay? Don't think of it like 5 million, 10 million people. It's very small, right? Thus, if a significant number of the population leaves, it's definitely going to impact the revenue, the economy, right? And so the Meccans see this, right? And so they decide, like, look, we've taken all these steps to stop Islam and the Prophet Muhammad. Now we're going to do the final step, and that's to kill him. So they finally got to the last resort, because remember, he doesn't have Abu Talib anymore. He doesn't have the one who was protecting him. That's why when Abu Talib was there was not this sense of, hey, I'm going to kill you. They would do other types of sanctions. Because at that time, it's just like today, I mean, you don't kill your own family members. It was something that was a no-no at that time. Like, you don't kill your own family members, right? But now they got to the point where, like, you know what? No, we're going to kill him, right? So obviously, the Prophet gets informed that, look, they're hatching a plan to kill him. He leaves. And he leaves with Abu Bakr, right? He leaves with Abu Bakr and so forth. There's a long story regarding that. But he goes. And then they end up finally in Medina, also known as Yathrib. Okay? There was the name of Medina before was Yathrib. But then as the Prophet came there, they changed the name to Medina. Okay? A review now, really quick. So now that was the Meccan phase. Everything we basically talked about was what happened in Mecca. Now we're transitioning into the Madani phase, or the Medinan phase. This is important because when you attend some lectures and so forth, people are going to mention these names. We're talking about the Meccan phase, or we're in the Madani or Medinan phase. This is what they're talking about. So now we just concluded the Meccan phase, right? About 13 years. 13 years the Prophet Muhammad was in Mecca. That was known as the Meccan phase, right? Now, because he's going from Mecca to Medina, we're in the Madani or Medinan phase. It's going to be the remainder 10 years. So if you put that together, 13 and 10 is 23 years. His prophethood was 23 years. Everybody with me? So he got prophethood when he was about 40 years of age, and then he was a prophet for about 23 years. So he passed away around 63 years of age. Okay? Everybody with me? Good. Okay. Now, those people, any questions so far? Yeah. Yes. Good question. Yeah. So those Habasha or Abyssinia. Yeah. So remember those Muslims that also went to Abyssinia. Again, this could have been another thing the Prophet said, you know what? Let's see if a community is starting here. Maybe a Muslim, they will be receptive to the message. And then we also know that the king, Najashi, he became Muslim. So when the commandment came that everyone has to come, then everyone slowly started to come from all over, right? Again, some people weren't able to make it for whatever reason. There's still some Muslims in Mecca that might not have been able to make it to Medina. But the vast majority of them, because the command was given now that every Muslim needs to migrate to Medina, everyone went. Yeah, it's a good question. Very good. Okay, any other questions? Everyone all right? How's the pizza? Pizza all right? Do we need a joke or something to wake everyone up? You guys are a little quiet today. AC's all right? Coffee not strong enough? Or okay, sounds good. No worries. No worries. May Allah bless you guys all and keep you all smiling and keep you happy. All right. So now, those people, and we have a few more minutes and not too much longer to go. Those people that went from Mecca to Medina, anybody know what's their title? What are they known as? Muhajirun, yes. Those people that accepted them in Medina, the citizens or the residents of Medina, what was their name? Ansar. These are two terms you have to be, you should get very familiar with. Those that went from Mecca to Medina, known as the Muhajirun, those that migrated, right? Those that accepted them in Medina, they're known as the Ansar. Ansar means basically the helpers, okay? Islam is coming, it's going to be expanding or spread through this group right here. The Muhajirun and the Ansar, these two groups, right? And this is a very beautiful thing because, we're going to reflect on this again, the moment the Prophet Muhammad and the Muslims got to Medina, from Mecca they went to Medina, right? And again, they didn't have United Airlines at that time. They didn't have, Delta Airlines. They didn't have frequent flyer mileage. They had to literally cross the desert on foot. Those that couldn't afford camels and horses and donkeys, etc. Some people had to go on foot, imagine, right? Imagine the again, because, we live in our times today, we can't really understand what it was back then, but imagine the sacrifices that they had to make. In the Arabian desert, it's not like 90 degrees or 100 degrees. You're talking about like well over. If anybody been to Saudi Arabia, you know how hot it is. It's not, it's very challenging, right? The moment the Muslims got to Medina, what was one of the first things that the Prophet Muhammad did? You guys remember pair them up. You see another example here? One of the first things, he obviously built the mosque. The Prophet's mosque is how we know it today. One of the first things he did, he paired up one Meccan to one person from Medina, one Muhajir to one Ansar. Why? Same thing, support system. Support system, you see? So it's throughout the life of the Prophet, you're going to find the Prophet's always taking care of converts, new Muslims, because everyone basically is a new Muslim, right? Everyone basically is a new Muslim. So he's immediately pairing them up. So he'll take somebody from Mecca, then he'll pair them up with somebody from Medina. Now, Mecca was known, when you look at like occupation and so forth, they were known for business, trading and business and so forth. Medina was known more of like a rural agricultural area. So there used to be farmers and so forth. So then if you see these two people being put together, one who has the business side, the one who knows the work, they put them together. This is a good combination because they knew how to do. They would teach and help one another, and they would support one another, right? And the Prophet spoke very highly about these groups, of both Muhajir, those that make the sacrifice, and of the Ansar that said, you know what? They're the ones that let us in and they helped us, right? And these two groups you'll find in the Quran, God mentions them many times and praises them for their sacrifices, not being selfish and so forth, right? So it's a very beautiful thing. But again, I just want to make sure when you go to the life of the Prophet, you'll find this common theme that the moment somebody embraces Islam, the Prophet always pairs them up. Always pairs them up. He gives them a support system, mentorship, so that they grow to be a strong Muslim, right? So, okay. Next, and again, we're just reviewing, right? So I'm just highlighting certain points. I can't go through all of it. But remember, all the lectures are back on our archives if you guys ever want to go back, right? The next thing, now that they're in Medina, right? Remember in Mecca, they were being persecuted, right? They were being persecuted a lot. Now, when they're in Medina, they have the commandments, or God reveals that they can defend themselves now. So now you're in Medina, remember the Quraysh are attacking them, they're persecuting them, they're putting them down, even some Muslims were killed, right? We talked about like Sumayya being killed and many other people unfortunately being persecuted, like Bilal and so forth, right? Now the Muslims are able to defend themselves, okay? So then the first battle takes place, the Battle of Badr. What is Badr? Badr was like a well, it was an area, right, over there. So then you have about 1,000 of the Quraysh that get together, those people from Mecca, the pagans, and there's about 300 Muslims that get together. So you have 1,000 non-Muslims against 300 Muslims. So the ratio is what, like 3.3 to 1 or something, right? If you can't have a third of a person, right? Like an arm or a leg or something like that. So it's basically 3 to 1, right? But eventually, when we talked about the story as well, the Muslims end up winning, right? And God talks about this, that also He sent angels to assist them and help them. And it was as if on the battlefield, the Quraysh, they saw things that they never seen before. They saw people that they couldn't describe. And these are obviously the angels that God sent, right? That God sent many angels to help them. So the Muslims win, right? So then at that time, obviously, the news gets out that, look, Muslims are someone to be reckoned with, meaning in the sense that they're establishing their community now, right? The Quraysh, who's the majority, the major tribe there in Arabia, they lost to the Muslims, who were a small group of people, right? Again, very important. Let's talk a little bit about the life in Medina. So remember, in life in Medina, you have Jews that are living there. Obviously, you have Muslims, and you have maybe some pagans living there as well. But you start to see, after the Battle of Badr, when they won, you start to see a group called the Munafiqun. You guys remember we talked about this, Munafiqun? The hypocrites. Hypocrites meaning hypocrisy, that they claim to be Muslim from the outside, but from the inside, they had nothing to do with Islam. They used to talk bad about the Prophet. They used to not be on the same page because many different reasons, right? One of them being that before the Prophet came to Medina, through that group over there, someone was going to become the chief, right? His name is Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, right? He was going to be the chief. So he ended up being the leader of the hypocrites because he had hypocrisy. You might have had a sense of jealousy. Hey, when the Prophet came, he kind of took everything over. That was supposed to be me, right? So from the outside, they might say, hey, we're Muslims. but from the inside they have nothing to do with Islam, right? Then we talked about the Jews, that the Jews have been there as well, right? And then munafiqun. Now we also started to talk about the tension between the Muslims and the Jews, right? There started to be a lot of tension between the Muslims and the Jews, though there was a treaty between them. There was a covenant, right? They had a treaty that, hey, if some foreign invasion group comes, that we're going to ally together. If there's some type of issue between Muslim against Jew, then the arbiter will be the Prophet Muhammad. They had all these stipulations and conditions, basically to protect Medina, right? But then they started to have a lot of tension between the two groups. Some of the things that used to happen was, we say assalamu alaikum. They used to say assam alaikum. That means, and if I say it fast, you won't be able to tell, right? That just, assam alaikum means death be upon you. Salam means peace. They would say assam alaikum, meaning death be upon you, right? They had this ill feeling. That's one thing. Another thing, and you might ask, like, why? How did this stem? Now, if you know of prophethood, right? Many of the prophets came from the lineage of who? Abraham, right? Obviously, Abraham had two sons, Ismail or Ishmael, and Ishaq or Isaac. The majority, the Bani Israel, the children of Israel, right? When you go to the Bible as well, they came through which one? Isaac or Ishmael? Isaac, Ishaq, right? So you have all the lineage of the Jewish prophets, they came through here, right? Now, and the last one being who from Isaac? Who was the last prophet in that lineage? Jesus, right? So you have all the prophets. The final one from that lineage of Isaac was Jesus, peace be upon him, right? Then the lineage of the prophets got switched from Isaac to Ishmael or Ismail, right? Now, through the prophet Abraham, right? I don't want to confuse anyone, but just if you can follow with me, this is really important. Through Ismail came the Arabs. Ishmael came the Arabs. Through Isaac came the Jews. So in reality, they're what? They're brothers, but they're cousins. But brothers, yeah, but cousins, right? They're basically cousins. But now the lineage of prophethood gets switched from Ishaq to Ismail, because the prophet comes from this lineage, right? So this is one of the reasons why the Jews didn't accept him. They said, no, all the prophets, or the majority of the prophets, they came through Isaac. They were Jews. How can it be an Arab now? We don't accept this. They also felt that and obviously this makes no sense, but they felt that the angel Gabriel made a mistake, that he went to the wrong person to tell them, hey, you're a prophet. And why that doesn't make any sense, that means you're saying that God made a mistake. Because who instructed angel Gabriel? God, Allah. So how can Allah make a mistake? He's one that never makes a mistake, right? So these are things that used to happen, right? So the Jews end up breaking the treaty. If you remember, there were three major tribes in Medina, the Jewish tribes, right? Banu Qaynuqa, Nadir, and Qurayda. These are the three major tribes. Qaynuqa, you don't need to know the names. Nadir and Qurayda, Bani Qurayda. These are the three major Jewish tribes. Two of the tribes, before we get to the third one, remember the one incident where they actually wanted to kill the Prophet Muhammad? They had a large boulder and they invited him for like lunch or something, and they were going to kill him. But then the angel Gabriel came and basically said, you need to leave right now because they're trying to kill you. And so remember, he left and the companions are still sitting there like, where'd you go? All right? Like, what happened? And then he informed them that, look, angel Gabriel told me they were trying to kill me, right? Because they had a rock. And the second case, you remember where they played a trick on the Muslim woman in the market, where they basically put a peg on her dress, and so when she got up, everything came off. They're playing a trick on her, and so everyone started to laugh. So this is the escalation that started to happen, and eventually the treaty broke, right? So then these two groups were expelled from Medina. For the protection of Medina, they were expelled, right, from the Medina, because they broke the contract. They broke the treaty. Now, everybody with me so far? Okay. Am I going too fast? Yes? No? Everyone's okay? Okay, no worries. If you remember, if I'm going too fast or something, just throw like a pizza at me or something. And I'll gladly eat the pizza as well. Don't throw food. It's not a food fight. I'm just kidding, right? So we get to, and we're almost done with the review session. We get to the Battle of Uhud. Now remember, the first battle was the Battle of what? Somebody new, please. The first battle was the Battle of Badr. I'm not looking, so hopefully somebody new. The Battle of Badr, right? Which was in the second year of when they made pilgrimage, right? Hijrah, the migration. The year after is the Battle of Uhud, because who wants revenge? The Quraysh, those that lost, they want revenge. They're like, how can we, as 1,000 people, lose to a group of 300 who didn't even have equipment? They didn't even have like the equipment that we had, right? How can we lose? So we want revenge. So for 1 year, they're hyping it up. They're hyping it up. We want revenge. Then it comes to the Battle of Uhud. What is Uhud? It's a range of mountains in Medina. It's a range of, it's not one mountain. It's a range of mountains. Uhud, Mount Uhud, it's a range of mountains. So this is where they basically had the battle in this area, right? Again, at this time, it was about 3,000 Quraysh and 700 Muslims. So again, look at the odds. 700 Muslims, right, to 3,000 Quraysh, right? So that's like what? I'm not the best at 4.4 to 1 or something like that. This is the ratio you're looking at. This is crazy, right? But remember, it wasn't 700. Did anybody know the initial number before? What was the initial number of the Muslims before it got to 700? 1,000. You said 1,000? You remember? Good. It was 1,000 because remember, 300 of the Muslim, so it was 1,000 at first, right? But imagine this, as they're going for battle, right? Imagine everybody's nervous. This might be your last day to live, whatever it might be, right? You're all different types of nerves in your system. As you're going for battle to the location, 300 of the Muslims, they pull out. Who were these 300? The munafiqun, the hypocrites, right? So this is open hypocrisy. They're like, you know what? You guys didn't listen to our suggestion. We leave, right? And the Muslims said, don't do something like this. You shouldn't do something like this. We're going to battle. Imagine the morale, right? You just imagine 1,000. So now it goes down to 700, right? But still, with this, the Muslims continue. But then in this battle, the Muslims actually lose this battle. The Muslims actually lose this battle. And Allah knows best. But the Prophet said, if you guys remember the story that we covered, there was when they looked at the area of Uhud, they said, you know, we can secure the whole area. The only one area that's going to be of some type of a challenge is this specific area where there's a small hill. So what did the Prophet do? And again, this is so interesting because did he go for some type of military training? Did he go to some military college or university? No. This is one of the miracles that scholars today try to figure out. Non-Muslims like, how did the Prophet, how was he such a genius at warfare? Again, they're defending the Muslims, right? How is he such a genius? Obviously, if God is inspiring you, you don't need anyone else, right? So again, as Muslims, there's so many different ways we can say why we believe in the Prophet as being a prophet, many different ways. This is one of the ways, right? Especially if somebody has maybe a military background, you go extensive training and you go to school, you get knowledge. The Prophet didn't have any of that. Nobody sat there and taught him, except Allah, obviously, right? So one specific area, this is where he said, you know what, we're going to put 50 archers. You guys remember the story? 50 archers. He said that, look, this is the area that's the one that we need to really secure because if anybody gets by, it's going to be in this area. Every other area on the battlefield, no problem. We can take it, right? He's thinking because, again, it's 3,000 and they only have 700. They have to do it, right? So the Muslims initially, they're winning the battle. You know, a lot of things are happening, etc. They're winning the battle and so forth. But what happens is, once they start to win the battle, the Quraysh, they run, they flee. So they run and the Muslims are chasing them. But once you're fleeing, are you able to take everything with you? No, you have to flee. Otherwise, you're gonna get killed. So in war, right, whatever you leave is confiscated from the winning party. And to be honest, a lot of that stuff is the Muslims in the first place anyways. Because where do you think they got all that stuff from? From their homes that they were forced to leave, right? So a good percentage of them was their own things, their properties. So the Muslims start to go and start to collect all these things. But the battle's still not finished. So the Quraysh had a group that was the cavalry, you know, like in the horses. You know, you see the movies like Braveheart. They had a little group that was waiting on the sidelines to say, you know what, if something happens, then you know what, you guys jump in. They saw this. They said, look, the Muslims they let their guard down. So then they came around another side and they basically started to attack the Muslims. This is how the Muslims actually lost. So initially they had won. But because the battle still was not over, right, and they went for the spoils of war, then this group came, the Quraysh came, and they defeated them. So there was quite a number of Muslims that passed away. Many different things happened. If you remember, the bodies were mutilated, right? The Quraysh, they mutilated the Muslim's body. One in particular was Hamza. Hamza was the uncle of the Prophet Muhammad, if you remember, right? He was one of those, when he accepted Islam, Islam had a izzah, he had a respect, because he was someone that was known to be a warrior. Literally, they cut open his body. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it's really graphic. They take a piece of his body and start to chew it. I think it was the liver, if I'm not mistaken. They took out the liver and started to chew on the liver. This is because Hamza because they had so much animosity and hatred towards Hamza. I know everyone's eating pizza, and it's probably not the most interesting thing to discuss right now, but I just want you guys to realize the sacrifice that the companions made and the Prophet Muhammad made. And in this scenario as well, the Prophet Muhammad was injured. He was hurt and he was bleeding. And they said that certain things had entered his cheek, whether it was the chain guard that he was wearing or some arrows. So something had entered his cheek and he was bleeding. Look how beautiful this is. The companions rushed to the Prophet Muhammad. Think about it. If you're in this situation, what would you do, right? The companions rushed, and when they saw the Prophet, they were shielding themselves to protect the Prophet. So much so that you would find people on the battlefield that had so many wounds, right? People couldn't even identify them. They were cut up, and it's war, right? But they were protecting the Prophet. They would stand, arrows are coming. They would be the shield, protecting the Prophet. This is amazing. But when they got to the Prophet, the companions, they were racing towards wanting to help him. And it's so beautiful. One incident has been narrated authentically that because he had, whether it was a chain guard or whether it was an arrow, they needed to take it out because the blood was coming out, right? So Abu Bakr said, he was trying, but then one of the companions raised, he said, no, Abu Bakr, let me do this. Let me take care of it. And he was pleading with Abu Bakr, let me take care of it, right? Abu Bakr, he was known to have a very soft heart. He's a very kind person. So he let this companion take care of it. So the companion, there's no way to pull this out. I mean, how are you going to pull it out? So he had to use his teeth to literally pull it out. So they say when he pulled it out, he lost his tooth. Or he lost a number of teeth, right, in his mouth. But then also the second part, so I think it was on both cheeks, the companion, Abu Bakr said, okay, I'll take care of it. He said, no, I want to, let me do it, Abu Bakr, and I'm going to do it, let me do it. And he did it, and he lost his other teeth. So literally, I mean, just imagine the amount of force. If you've ever been to a dentist, even after all the medication that you're given, and anesthesia and so forth, right, you still feel pain. There's no concept of anesthesia and painkillers at this time. You're taking it full on, right? So imagine, and he took it out, but yet they said, if I'm not mistaken, after this incident, he didn't have his teeth in the front or on the side, but he was known to be so beautiful. People respected him for that because the sacrifice that he made. This is just one small incident. There are many incidents like that show the love of the companions for the Prophet Muhammad. You and I have to ask ourselves, what would we have done? You see what I'm saying? This is why Allah has chosen specifically the companions to be those that are around, right? But still, we have our duty today of educating people about Islam, right? But when you go through the life of the Prophet, especially when you talk about the battles, you find such huge sacrifices that they made. It's just amazing, It's amazing, subhanAllah. Okay. Then after this, very quickly, just we can wrap up. The Battle of the Trench happens. So this is another battle that happens. Okay, called the Trench, or it's called Khandaq or Ahzab. This is the battle that you guys are probably familiar with. This is where they built a trench, or they dug a trench, right? So again, you had about 10,000 soldiers. Again, many of them, because they lost or whatever it might be, right? They got together, right? And so you had about 10,000 versus 3,000 soldiers. As you see, the numbers are getting bigger. Now the Muslims started with how many people in the first battle? 300. Now they're about 3,000. But again, the Quraysh as well, 1,000, now to about 10,000, right? So they increase this amount. Now they get intelligence that, hey, this 10,000 biggest army is coming now. What do we do, right? So they basically said, look, if you know the geography of Medina was protected with mountains and rocks and so forth. There's certain areas that they could not penetrate. There was only one area, the main area that people could penetrate. So this is where the Muslims, they dug a trench. So the trench was not around the whole city. It's around a certain part of the city, right? And then, because again, you have mountains, you have other things that no army is going to go over, because if they did, it would just be easy to, arrows and so forth. There was just one main entrance, and this is where they dug a trench, okay? But then on the south end of Medina, there was an entrance. But who lived on the south end was the Bani Qurayza. This is the third Jewish tribe. Remember we talked about the other two? The third Jewish tribe, Bani Qurayza, they lived on the south. Okay, they lived on the south. And they had a treaty. Remember, if we talked about it earlier, right? If somebody comes to attack us, we will all defend, right? So they're upon this treaty. So they said, we don't have to worry about the south end of the city because it's protected by Bani Qurayza, right? Nobody can come in. So this battle itself lasted for about a month. This battle was for about a month. And it really wasn't a battle, you can say it's a battle, but there were small skirmishes, but it wasn't a full-on battle like what you saw in Badr and Uhud, the first two battles, right? Because they had a trench and they couldn't penetrate the trench. After 1 month, and so this is the Muslims they actually end up winning, because the Quraysh, or this group of 10,000, they eventually end up leaving. Because think about it, your food is low, right? Your weapons are low. They have a sandstorm that's happening in the middle of the desert. So eventually they say, you know what? We're packing our stuff. We're leaving, because we're not going to win. There's no way we can. Our camels are being, swept away with the sand. There's no way we can win. So this was a symbolic victory for the Muslims. But an important note to be mentioned here: the 10,000 of the Quraysh. Remember, they had many different tribes. This is why it's called, in one case, the Confederates, meaning various tribes that got together. Of this 10,000 were some of the Jews. So what happened was, one of the Jewish leaders, the chiefs, he went to Bani Qurayza, the town, right? The third Jewish tribe that was on the south end of the city. They basically said, look, we're 10,000, man. There's no way the Muslims can win. So just open up this area for us, and we'll come in from the south, right? We can come and penetrate from the south, right? You guys understand what I'm saying? This is the part that was protected by the Jewish tribe. But they're in a treaty, so they had to protect it. But then they basically said, look, we have 10,000, we'll win, don't worry about it, right? So they basically broke the treaty. The Muslims get intelligence. The Prophet gets intelligence that, you know what? They're going to break the treaty. Someone informs him. The Prophet sends the companions, and the companions go and they ask him, you guys are still upon the treaty, right? Everyone's upon the treaty? They said, what treaty? What are you talking about? Who's Muhammad? They acted like they have no idea, right? So they had broken the covenant, right? But fortunately, by the mercy of Allah, the Quraysh ended up having that group of 10,000 had internal conflicts and disagreements. So then, from the permission of Allah, they ended up leaving, and this was a symbolic victory for the Muslims. The Muslims ended up winning. Okay? That is our review session. Very good, very good. I have one short video. If somebody can help me with the lights, and then we will conclude. Yeah, one of them, yeah. You'll get it. No, not that one. Next one. Just try all of them, yeah. Try one in the middle. Many? No, you're right where you were. Yeah. There we go. That's fine. Yeah.
And you know what happens to people? This is the last thing I'm sharing with you, inshaAllah ta'ala. There are people who Allah makes many things easy for them. Please listen to this carefully. Allah makes many things easy for them. For some of you, Allah made money easy for you. It's just easy for you. For some of you, confidence is easy. It's no big deal. Other people get nervous, you don't get nervous. For some students of mine, studies are easy. Like I teach Arabic. Some of my students, wallahi, I can tell Allah made Arabic easy for this one. And the other one, ما خلق لدراسة العربية. He wasn't made to study Arabic. He's the smartest guy in his field. He will be a PhD in physics. He can't do mudaf and mudaf ilayh. He can't do it. He wasn't made for it. This is tough for him. Not everybody's the same. Now what happens is when people get used to success, Allah makes one thing easy, then He makes the next thing easy, and then makes the next thing easy, and the next thing easy. Is everything always going to be easy? No, sometimes you will fail. There's a student who gets used to getting 100 the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time, and the fifth time he gets a 50. All of a sudden. And he's used to what? 100. So he said, oh, forget it, I am worthless. Allah is no longer with me. What's the point now? Because you get used to riding so high that one little failure, one setback, and you're just crushed. You are completely crushed. What's the point? I'm dropping out of school. I don't want to do this anymore. I hate this. You know what? This is when you didn't remind yourself at every single success that success was a combination of two things: your effort and Allah's help. Every single 100 you got before wasn't because it was easy. You put effort and Allah gave His barakah. You put effort and Allah gave His barakah. And this time when it doesn't happen, two things could be wrong. Number one, maybe you didn't put enough effort. And when you don't put enough effort, Allah does not give His barakah. And maybe even if you put effort, Allah decided that He will not give you barakah, maybe that's better for you. One of my best friends in life used to be a Hindu, and he wanted to go to med school. And he was a straight A student. Straight A's his entire life. Perfect scores. Highest scores in the SATs. Applied to med school, he was expecting a full scholarship. He got rejected. He was completely shattered. He ended up in a different university. He decided to do computer science instead. And he was he's still a Hindu. He's completely depressed. Except he met people in his new college, Muslims, who he started hanging out with, and within 2 years he took Shahada. And he looks back now, he goes, thank Allah I didn't make it to med school. When I failed med school, I thought it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And now I look back at my life and I say, I failed med school, it is the best thing that ever happened to me. You know? His kids are memorizing Quran. Can you imagine? His kids are memorizing Quran. His father, when he became Muslim, they dragged him to, his father got so shocked, he took him to India to beat Hinduism back into him. And he ran away from them, came back. You know? Now his kids are memorizing Quran, subhanallah. So sometimes we have to have trust in Allah. We get used to riding a high wave, and one little setback comes and we lose our trust in Allah. And then there are others who Allah gives you one difficulty, then He gives you another difficulty, then He gives you another difficulty, and He gives you another difficulty, and you start believing that I will never accomplish anything. My life is just difficult, man. Everything is hard for me. I keep getting fired. I keep failing my tests. I keep doing that. You get depressed. And even this one has to remember that success in this world, everything that happens is a combination of two things. I have to put in my effort, and Allah will make the task easy. I know I said last, but I have 1 minute left. Might as well use it for something. I'll share this last thing with you. There are two parts of this dua so far. It's not even the whole dua. I just wanted to share these two statements with you. رَبِّ اشْرَحْ لِي صَدْرِي وَيَسِّرْ لِي أَمْرِي. There's a sir balaghi. There's a very beautiful eloquence to this statement. Allah is teaching us that if you have a calm heart, if you have a positive attitude, and you have tawakkul in Allah, and you put your work in, then Allah will make your mission easy. But if you start with the attitude, I know it's not going to work anyway, but I'll try. You already began with a defeated attitude, Allah will not make your task easy for you. You have to come with sharh al-sadr. You have to have an open chest, a positive attitude, belief that Allah will give you success in what you do. And if He doesn't give it to you, well, you're still saying Alhamdulillah, but you don't walk into an effort. You don't start a project. You don't start doing any work, and you begin with saying, I'm probably not going to succeed anyway, given my track record. You don't begin with that attitude. Then Allah will not make your job easy for you. So if we have that good heart before Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah will make our task easy for us, subhanahu wa ta'ala. With that, I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal gives us all the ability to take advantage of the wisdom of the great prophets of Allah alayhimu salatu wasalam that is captured in their du'as. They said such few words, but they taught us so much of how to better our lives as believers and how to live our life successfully for Allah's deen and also make the best of this dunya. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us find the balance between this deen and this dunya as He intends it. And may Allah put all of us to the service of His beautiful deen and this ummah. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim wa nafa'ani wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr al-Hakim.
Just a reminder for everyone, I pray that was beneficial for everyone. It's a video I came across, and it was really nice, very touching. And sometimes we always, we think about, why is this happening to me? Why is that happening to me? There's many different reasons, right? So, okay, some announcements I have, inshallah. First thing is, I'm just very happy, everyone. We went through the review session, so just know that we're almost there as far as the life of the Prophet Muhammad, right? So keep going, keep going. I had to go a little bit longer today. I don't like to go too long. But if we went long today, just want to make sure we finish the review session. We only have a few more weeks left of the life of the Prophet, and then we're done, right? And I want to make sure everyone gets the full, all the sessions, right? So please do your best to keep coming. If for some reason you can't make it, try to live stream it if you can. As I announced earlier, and for those that walked in maybe a little bit later on, we're going to have our bonfire. It's a social activity that we try to have for our new Muslim family. And that is August 18th, which will be a Friday. So every Friday we have a coffee with the Sheikh, which is an open question and answer session. What we're going to do instead for that Friday, we're going to have a bonfire at Huntington Beach. And for those of you that went last time, I think it was a real nice time, so we're trying to do it again. The sign-up sheet is going on. Where's the sign-up sheet on the sister side? Is there? Okay, Michelle. You guys can just pass it around. If you're in a position to bring something, that'll be great, because it'll be a potluck. So if you can bring something, that'll be great. If you can't bring anything, no worries. Just please do try to come. You're most welcome to bring anyone that you want, your family members, friends, etc. And just have a good time. There's one on the brother side as well. You guys probably already filled it out. More details to come regarding that. Okay. And anybody went to the archery yesterday? The CIU? Michelle, Edith, you guys? How was it? Really? Okay, good. What was the turnout like? Good? A lot of people. Good, good. Anybody else on the brother side? Anybody else? Just two? Christine, you went? Okay. Did you like it? It was a lot of fun? You think we should do something like that for our class? Yeah? Okay. Okay, good. We want CIU to take the lead on it first and see how it goes. That was a success. We'll probably try to do something like that as well. So that's good, inshallah. Okay, having said that, I still have a few more of these ID cards. Somebody asked me for, so I'll leave them over here for anybody that needs it. And remember, this is a Islamic resource sheet that I have for speakers, websites, and Quran reciters. If you did not get this, I would encourage you to get one of these. So this way, when you're on YouTube or you're Googling something, you have some type of direction of what are good speakers and websites and YouTube channels, etc. Right? So I'll leave that for you guys here. Let's go ahead and make sure we put everything away. There's some food that's left over. Make sure you guys take a plate. Let's put the chairs and tables away, and I will see you all on Friday, inshallah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.